Today on NewsWatch, pressure mounts in Syria with China now criticizing Russia's involvement. Hear what's ahead as world powers try to drive out Islamic militants. Plus, violence escalates in Israel. Our Jerusalem bureau chief breaks down how the wave of attacks could be linked to biblical prophecy. And
we could change up to 30% of the families in America. We would change the whole culture and in that sense change Western civilization.
Saving society one marriage at a time, why one couple's experiment could have a huge impact on the entire world. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. More bloodshed in Israel today as Palestinian Arabs declared a day of rage. Israelis were targeted in several attacks, terrorists killing at least 2 people and wounding more than 20. Chris Mitchell reports now from the scene of one of the latest attacks.
Palestinian Arabs committed at least 3 more terror attacks, 2 in Jerusalem and another in central Israel. This terror attack inside a bus in a Jerusalem neighborhood represents the latest and the largest terror attack in the recent wave of violence. What began as an ordinary bus drive suddenly turned violent and deadly.
What took place here in MH17 in a relatively quiet neighborhood, 2 terrorists carried out an attack on a bus. One of them was armed with a pistol, the second one with a knife. They injured 5 Israelis. What we confirmed is that our police units that arrived at the scene shot and killed one of the terrorists. The second terrorist was apprehended.
Aaron Adler arrived on the scene as one of the first responders.
When I arrived on scene, there was actually still shooting on the scene. We found the bus here behind us with multiple gunshot wound victims inside the bus. Together with other crews, we pulled them out and started life-saving treatments. Whatever we could do to try saving their lives.
Jerusalem's mayor, Nir Barkat, blames Palestinian incitement. Mahmoud Abbas began the incitement last month when he said the Jews' dirty feet should not be allowed on the Temple Mount.
Which is not true, which is a lie. It's just a filthy lie. However, some of the residents believe those lies. And those incitements are sending people to kill innocent people. We've just seen in the last few days children, high school children that are incited, that go and try and terrorize and kill policemen. They don't return home. They themselves get killed. The incitement kills on both sides.
Some Israelis are concerned they're on the verge of a third Palestinian intifada, a word that means uprising. The first took place in the late 80s and early 90s, and the second took place from 2000 to 2004. The latest wave of violence has shaken Israelis.
We are terrified, and the world thinks that we are not justice with the Arabs. This is not true. They have ID like I do, and they kill us.
It's hard. It's not a good situation, but we do what we can. We believe in what we do, and we know that we know the purpose behind it. We understand the calling.
Jerusalem's mayor said this wave of violence is a wake-up call for the nations.
Now, the experience we're going through here in our city will haunt the rest of the world in a few years from now. You have to understand that terrorism, this kind of terrorism, is not just a Jerusalem problem. It's not just an Israeli problem. It's an international problem. And if you don't understand and support us in fighting terrorism here, next phase will happen everywhere else in the world.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Armon Hanatziv, Jerusalem.
Joining me now to talk about the growing violence in Israel is our Jerusalem bureau chief, Chris Mitchell. Prime Minister Netanyahu is calling the violence a systematic incitement over the Temple Mount. Is that really the root of the problem, Chris?
I think that's exactly one of the roots of the problem. Ephraim, back in the middle of September, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, said that he said that the Jews, the dirty feet of the Jews, shouldn't go on the Temple Mount. And so actually for weeks there has been a lot of provocative acts there on the Temple Mount, Muslims trying to intimidate Jewish groups that would come up there to come on the Temple Mount. So I think the Temple Mount is really one of the epicenters of this particular conflict going on right now.
Some think this violence could be a sign of a third Palestinian intifada. What are your thoughts on that?
It feels like that. Actually, Ephraim, I came here in August of 2000, just a few weeks after we arrived. What's called the Second Intifada began, and for about 3.5 years there was suicide bombings, terror attacks. There's a sense in the last couple of weeks here that these attacks have just been incessant and around the country, not only around here in Jerusalem, but throughout other communities.
This being Israel, are any of the recent attacks you think linked to end-time biblical prophecy?
Well, in terms of prophecy, I would think the Temple Mount, I think, is the one thing that a lot of people look to as one thing that's going to be a source of contention between the Jews and Muslims. I think that could be one area where you could talk about biblical prophecy. Zechariah does say that at one time all the nations of the world are going to come against Jerusalem, and so Jerusalem itself and the Temple Mount in particular, I think, are the issues that are going to be coming really to the forefront in these days that we're living in right now.
Is there anything America could be doing right now?
Well, I think America could probably be distinguishing the problem, and I think they really need to talk about the kind of incitement that has gone on for years by the Palestinian Authority. Not just this example of Mahmoud Abbas in September, but it's incessant on Palestinian media. People could go to palwatch.org. It's the Palestinian Media Watch, and they could just see examples, the hundreds of examples, literally, of this kind of incitement that is fed to the Palestinian people. And what we see, it bears this kind of terrible fruit of these rock-throwing incidents, stabbing incidents, throughout the area right now, and that's really the source of this kind of incitement. And I think the United States needs to be talking about that to the Palestinian Authority.
Indeed. Thank you so much for opening our eyes once again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ephraim.
A Dutch investigation reveals the Malaysian airline plane that went down over Ukraine last year was shot down by a Russian-made missile. All 298 people aboard the flight MH17 died as a result. Ukraine and Western countries contend the airliner was downed by a missile fired by Russian-backed rebels or Russian forces. And the new Dutch report supports that theory. The company that makes the missile is controlled by the Russian government. They say their own investigation contradicts the Dutch report. International pressure is mounting against Russia's involvement in Syria. European Union nations are criticizing Russia's military engagement in the war-torn country, calling it a game changer. Heather Sells has the latest.
The Russian Defense Ministry released this video on Monday. It purportedly shows airstrikes on an Islamic State training camp in Syria. But the European Union is not happy with Russia.
I think the situation is more worrying because with also the Russian attacks, I think the tension has actually increased, and it's a worrisome situation at the moment.
EU foreign ministers are warning Russia to center its military action in Syria against ISIS and not to go after the moderate opposition. That's because Russian airstrikes have backed moves by Syrian troops against non-ISIS insurgents. The EU is also calling on Russia to coordinate its attacks with the EU and the U.S. Saudi Arabia is warning that Moscow's military intervention could escalate the war in Syria and inspire militants around the world to join in. And China is chiding both Washington and Moscow, saying their outdated Cold War mindset could develop into a full-blown proxy war. Russia continues to insist that ISIS poses a major threat and that its air campaign in Syria is necessary. Arrests over the weekend may prove that point. Russian security officials say they thwarted an ISIS attack on Moscow's public transportation system. Some of those detained were apparently trained by Islamic State militants. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Earlier today, insurgents fired 2 shells at the Russian embassy in the Syrian capital. The attack came as hundreds of Syrian government supporters gathered outside. They were rallying to thank Moscow for intervening and fighting terrorism in Syria. An American missionary in Haiti has been killed. Roberta Edwards served the people of Port-au-Prince for more than 20 years. She ran an orphanage called the Sunlight Children's Home. Saturday night, she was driving back to her ministry when a car blocked her vehicle. Gunmen then shot and killed Edwards, kidnapping a 4-year-old girl from the car. Edwards was affiliated with the Estes Church of Christ in Henderson, Tennessee. Police do not have a motive for the killing. The Democratic presidential candidates are holding their first debate tonight in Las Vegas, Nevada. CBN's David Brody is there for us, and he's got a preview.
Well, here in Las Vegas, it is time for the headliners like Celine Dion and Britney Spears to move on over, at least for one night, because on Tuesday, the big show here in Vegas will be Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, a duo playing here on stage. This campaign was expected to be a cakewalk for the former First Lady, but it has not turned out that way. Now, one big reason seems to be the story that just won't go away, how she used a private email server to conduct government business. It's fed a perception that she can play by a different set of rules. Clinton still has a decent lead nationally on the socialist senator from Vermont, but Sanders is coming on strong. He's beating her comfortably in the key state of New Hampshire, and he's a close second in Iowa as well. Plus, Sanders is the one drawing tens of thousands of people to his events. Democrat voters seem to be listening intently to his populist messages.
He's authentic. I mean, he is real. And not only that, but he's actually talking about some issues that the American public needs to really pay attention to.
With the threat from Bernie Sanders a reality, Clinton is now trying to reposition herself a little more leftward. Just recently, she came out against President Obama's big Trans-Pacific Partnership free trade agreement. That's a reversal, because while Secretary of State, she actually was for it. This new position puts her more in line with the liberal base of her party.
As of today, I am not in favor of what I have learned about it. I don't believe it's going to meet the high bar I have set.
And so the drama on Tuesday night will center on whether or not Bernie Sanders and some others on that stage will actually confront Hillary Clinton directly. So far, Martin O'Malley, the former Maryland governor, will be on stage Tuesday night, has confronted her, but not directly, so we'll wait and see about that. And so for Hillary Clinton, this is really looking a lot like 2008 once again. Remember back then she ran into a buzzsaw named Barack Obama, and now this time around the buzz seems to be with Bernie Sanders. David Brody, CBN News in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thank you, David. Hillary Clinton's home email server could have easily been hacked. An Associated Press investigation found the system was set up in a way that even low-skilled hackers could have broken into her computer. Intruders could possibly have gained access via the internet to remotely control the server Clinton used from her home during her time as Secretary of State. The investigation also learned that Clinton ran 2 other devices from her home that could have been hacked via the internet. Some of the emails found on Clinton's server have been deemed top secret. Well, the storms have passed and the floods are fading, but cleanup is far from over in South Carolina. Governor Nikki Haley says the state is moving into recovery mode. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground in South Carolina.
One of the most powerful things that Mike, the homeowner, said to me just now when we were inside was that the volunteers, of course, are saving he and his wife a lot of money by doing all this labor for free. But he said, in his words, even more important than that is the hope that they brought to them. He said the first day they had no idea what they were going to do, and then the volunteers were here. It was an incredible encouragement to them that people they didn't even know, strangers from other states and other towns, came here to help them out of the goodness of their hearts. This is truly Christian compassion.
If you would like to join in and help Operation Blessing touch the lives of those in need, simply log on to ob.org. And still to come, Christians coming together in a powerful display of unity. See why hundreds of different denominations gathered Monday in our nation's capital. Tennessee lawmakers have proposed a bill to stop religious doctrine from being taught in public schools until high school, that is. The move comes after parents complain their children are being taught about Islam in middle school. State officials acknowledge that students may learn the 5 pillars of Islam for historical context. The bill says if a religion is mentioned, it should be referenced and not taught as a doctrine to students. Abraham Lincoln presided over a nation divided by civil war, but Monday his statue in the Lincoln Memorial oversaw a nation united in prayer. As Paul Strand reports, the Washington Prayer Gathering brought hundreds of denominations together to plead with God for a great national revival.
This is the second Columbus Day churches from all over the Washington region gathered as one on the National Mall because they realize national revival will never come from an unrepentant, divided church.
There's nothing that says love in the church like unity among the brethren. That's why this is a special day with more than 300 denominations gathered to pray, repent, and ask God to awaken the nation.
Unity is a beautiful thing, and Jesus wants unity not just in his churches, but among his churches. And today is just a wonderful opportunity to show that kind of unity.
Church leaders are realizing that we need each other. We are much better together. We just can't get the job done as any one church.
But the show of unity had a greater purpose.
To humble ourselves before God and pray and seek his face and confess our sins in obedience to God. We're here to pray for revival to fall on our city and on our nation and on our churches and on ourselves.
Because those who study revival know it begins in the church and with believers.
We think it starts in each human heart. If we're going to see revival, it's right here.
Though what happens at these gatherings is important, the leaders here say what really matters now is that each person leave here and show this love of Christ to a watching world throughout the year. Paul Strand, CBN News, the Washington Prayer Gathering.
Up next, safer communication for couples. See how a relationship revolution is strengthening marriages. We've got the story. It's coming up after this. More than 90% of people get married by the time they are 50, but America's high divorce rate is proof many couples simply do not know how to make their relationship work. Now, one Dallas couple has come up with an effective system to save marriages. Caitlin Burke has their story.
Talking. It's something we do throughout the day. We chat about the weather, movies, our kids, breezing from one subject to another. Yet when it comes to talking about relationships, we often hit the brakes, or worse.
There is a myth in our culture, and the myth is that if you're struggling in your relationship, maybe you're married to the wrong person. That if you're fighting, well, maybe you should get a divorce.
Doctors Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt say it's time to change that.
Through conversation alone, a safe conversation, a new kind of talking, we could change the whole fabric of human beings all over the world.
For years, this couple worked to help others just like themselves build stronger relationships. But then they looked at society as a whole and realized relationships were still falling apart. Only 14% of couples actually go to therapy. That led them to take their relational technology, information, and science from clinic to community. Back in 2012, they began an experiment to improve the wellness of Dallas by first concentrating on the wellness of the family.
When the couple falls apart, then their kids fall apart. And if the kids don't thrive at home, they can't thrive at school. And if they don't do well at school, then they don't do well when they graduate, and they don't do well at work. And when they don't work well at work, it becomes a drain on the culture.
The technology, called Safe Conversations, teaches a couple to both talk and listen.
Talking is the most dangerous thing people do, and everybody talks. Very few people know how to talk so that they don't produce some kind of rupture or conflict.
During free workshops, Hendricks and Hunt teach couples to connect and feel safe with each other through healthy communication.
Is now a good time for me to share with you an appreciation?
Yeah, it's a good time.
So now make eye contact and hold eye contact for about 3 deep breaths.
People are longing to be in a relationship, but they didn't know how. We now have the technology to teach couples to be in relationship.
It's becoming a relationship revolution. The goal, to change the entire culture of society, one marriage at a time.
So we could change up to 30% of the families in America. We would change the whole culture and in that sense change Western civilization.
Hendricks and Hunt tested this relationship technology on their own marriage out of necessity and desperation.
We actually went to therapy about 15 years ago, and the therapist called us the couple from hell. We were horrible. And then we decided, well, maybe we should apply the system to our relationship.
But what we discovered was you can't just decide to do it. You have to practice it every day. It has to be a new way to talk.
You spent a lot of your time trying to be validated, and that need never being met. You never got their time.
I never got their time, kept striving for it by working harder and longer. Didn't happen.
The Dallas experiment is working, and Hendricks and Hunt plan to take their workshops into other communities. As a bonus, they tell us the couples they've helped are spreading the word as well.
These couples are becoming, in fact, the little army in the front line of a relational revolution, and we're going to support them.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Dallas, Texas.
Christian music is being celebrated tonight at the 46th Annual Dove Awards. The Gospel Music Association presents its top honors in Nashville, and Christian rapper Lecrae leads the pack of nominees. He has 7 nominations, including Artist of the Year. Lecrae topped the Billboard 200 albums chart last year with his 7th studio album, Anomaly. The album topped secular and Christian charts simultaneously, and it was indeed a first of its kind on so many levels. Well, it is now time for your Tuesday Tweetable, and I want you to consider this. The dictionary defines the word sufficient as having or providing as much as needed. And God promises us His grace is sufficient for you. Therefore, it is all you need. You don't need any more and you don't need any less. His grace is indeed enough. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Hope you'll join us again right here tomorrow. Make it a terrific Tuesday.